Do you know that negotiation is actually a subject taught in some of the top business schools in the world? People spend lakhs of rupees learning how to negotiate better, communicate better, influence decisions, and create opportunities for themselves. But here's the funny part. Most people think negotiation only happens when you are discussing salary. That's not true. You are negotiating every single day. You are negotiating when you are asking your manager for more responsibility. You are negotiating when you are trying to convince your team to support your ideas. You are negotiating when you are asking for a promotion. You are negotiating when you are trying to get a client to trust you. And sometimes you are even negotiating when you are deciding where to go for lunch with your friends. Hello everyone, I'm your friend and coach Medha Rikhi and welcome back to Winspark. At Winspark, we help working professionals speak with confidence, communicate with clarity, negotiate without self-doubt, and unlock the leader that already exists inside them. And today I want to talk about something that can genuinely change the trajectory of your career. Not a technical skill, not a certification, not another online course, but a skill that quietly sits behind almost every successful professional's growth. And that skill is communication. Whenever people imagine a great negotiator, they usually imagine someone very intimidating. A serious person, a person who speaks loudly, someone who can dominate the room. But when I started observing successful leaders around me, I noticed something surprising. The best negotiators were rarely the loudest people in the room. They were usually the best listeners. They were curious. They asked good questions. They understood people. And most importantly, they understood what the other person wanted. Because negotiation is not really about convincing people. It is about understanding people. The moment you understand what somebody wants, you become far more persuasive than someone who is simply trying to prove a point. And this lesson becomes incredibly important in workplaces. Let me ask you something. Who are the people that usually get promoted? Think about your own office. Is it always the smartest person? Not necessarily. Is it always the hardest working person? Again, not necessarily. Very often, the people who grow are the people who are good at conversations. They are easy to work with. People enjoy collaborating with them. Clients trust them. Managers understand them. Colleagues support them. And because of that, opportunities naturally start flowing towards them. Now, before somebody misunderstands me, I am not saying performance doesn't matter. Performance absolutely matters, but performance alone is not enough. Because here's a reality that most professionals discover very late in their careers. If nobody knows what you are working on, nobody knows your value. And that's where communication comes in. I often tell professionals to assume one thing. Assume that nobody knows what you are doing. Not because people don't care, but because everyone is busy thinking about their own work. Your manager is thinking about deadlines. Your colleagues are thinking about their own projects. Leadership is thinking about business goals. Nobody wakes up wondering what you worked on yesterday. Which means that if you are creating value, you must learn how to communicate that value. Not through bragging, not through showing off, but through clear communication. And that's one of the biggest reasons communication becomes a career accelerator. You know what's interesting? Whenever people talk about successful CEOs, they focus on finance, strategy, operations, and business knowledge. And yes, all of those things matter. But when you actually listen to successful leaders, one skill keeps coming up again and again. That is communication. Because at senior levels, success is no longer just about doing the work. It's about influencing people, aligning teams, building trust, resolving conflicts. A CEO doesn't succeed because they know everything. A CEO succeeds because they can bring people together. Now let's talk about negotiation specifically. Most people enter negotiations with wrong mindset. Let's say you want a raise. You spend days preparing, you collect numbers, you created a list of achievements, you rehearse your arguments, and then you walk into the meeting room. Today, I'm going to convince my boss. But what usually happens? The conversation becomes a debate. You are trying to prove yourself. Your manager is trying to evaluate the situation, and both people start defending their position. A much smarter approach is to enter the conversation with curiosity. Instead of thinking, how do I persuade them? Ask yourself, what do they want? Because the moment you understand what success looks like from their perspective, the conversation changes completely. Imagine asking questions like, what do you think I am doing particularly well right now? What skills would you like me to develop further? What are the biggest priorities for the team this quarter? Now suddenly you are not arguing. You are gathering information. You are learning. And interestingly, people who focus on learning often become far more persuasive than people who focus on convincing. Because now both of you are solving a problem together. And this brings me to another mistake professionals make. They wait for annual review meetings to ask for feedback. Why wait? You gave a presentation yesterday, ask for feedback today. You led a meeting, ask for feedback. You handled a client conversation, ask for feedback. Something as simple as, hey, you were there in the meeting yesterday. Is there anything you think I could improve? Can teach you more than hours of online learning. Now, let me talk about something that many professionals secretly struggle with: comparison. The moment somebody else starts doing better than us, we often react in one of the two ways. Either we get jealous or we convince ourselves that they got lucky. We tell ourselves they have better connections, they were favored, they got lucky. But here's a more useful question. What are they doing differently? Because every high performer leaves clues. Maybe they communicate updates better. Maybe they ask better questions. Maybe they build stronger relationships. Maybe they speak up more often in meetings. Maybe they are more proactive. The goal isn't to copy them. The goal is to observe them, to learn from them, to understand which behaviors are creating positive outcomes. Because growth becomes much faster when curiosity replaces jealousy. And finally, I want to leave you with two very practical strategies that can immediately increase your visibility at work. The first is simple. Document everything. Most professionals underestimate how much they actually do. Then, a few months later, they sit in a performance review and suddenly forget half of their achievements. So keep a simple record of your projects, client wins, presentations, achievements, and key contributions. Performance reviews becomes much easier when you have evidence instead of relying on memory. The second strategy is equally important. Communicate your work. Again, not by bragging, not by announcing every small task, but by making sure relevant people know about meaningful contributions. One of the simplest way to do this is through a weekly update. Every Friday, send a short email to your manager. A few lines. Here's what I worked on this week. Here's what was completed. Here's what progress was made. And then end with one powerful question. Is there anything that should be a higher priority for me next week? That one question does three things. It shows ownership, it shows alignment, and it shows that you are thinking beyond just your own tasks. So, if there's one thing I want you to remember, it is this. Career growth is rarely just about working harder. It's about communicating better. It's about understanding people. It's about making your work visible, and it's about learning how to negotiate without turning every conversation into a battle. Because the professionals who grow the fastest are usually not the loudest. They are the ones who communicate their value the best. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to Winspark for more practical workplace communication, confidence, negotiation, and leadership tips. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, keep learning and keep growing.